Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So we're going to cover the swarm build in this video, and I'm going to try to break it up into like 3 small sections, just covering the strengths and weaknesses, how to build it, and hopefully show an example to show kind of the strength when it gets up and running, which is pretty simple, pretty straightforward to get up and running. There's just a couple of things to look out for, and of course your swarm build may vary. It might be different than mine or anyone else's. There's always unlike cavalry and muskets, which are landmark dependent, officer dependent, almost every clan in the game has access to increasing their troops. So almost any clan can lean into this build. Now with swarm specifically, the difference between swarm and just saying, oh, I want to increase my soldiers, right? The idea with swarm is to burst your troop count up immediately and then overwhelm whoever it is, whoever your target is. Overwhelm them before they can build up their troop count. You actually want to outpace whoever your neighbor is who you're going to invade, and then keep them on the defensive so that you just wear them down. They just can't recover. They're just overwhelmed. You build up a horde essentially and you overwhelm them. That's the goal of it. Now you can still use it defensively to even the odds. If you're playing as a clan and you have a much bigger neighbor, I'm thinking of Ujizani Magawa holding off Shingen, right? That kind of situation, it's like, yeah, I'll take a 20%, 25% extra soldiers right away. I'm going to need everyone I can. So you can use it defensively, but the main purpose of this video is to cover how to use it offensively, how to get your troops set up. Like I said, just burst out very, very quickly and outpace your opponents. So, let's get started. Okay, so there's basically 3 main things that you need to get the engine up and running, just like cavalry, just like muskets. But like I said, every clan in the game has access to some way of increasing their soldiers. So it's not as restrictive as cavalry, it's not as restrictive as muskets, it's not as dependent on your landmarks, on your traits, none of that. Okay, it still does, you still need a conservator role. That still plays a key part. But the first thing that you need to consider, that's very important if you're going to run a swarm, and this is my opinion, you can probably do it without, but if you're just starting out and you just want to figure this out, the easiest way to get this up and running, pick a clan that at least has 3 castles. Okay, 3, no less than 3. The reason for that is because you're going to need a little bit of economy, a little bit of a treasury already in the bank. Monthly income doesn't matter, but you need treasury, a little bit of economy, and a little bit of castle plans, castle plots, I should say, so that you can start building immediately and you have more than a couple of territories. If you only have 2, if you only have 1, then the following things that I'm going to talk about are just not going to be as effective. Okay, so pick a clan that at least has 3 castles. Now that doesn't mean that it's impossible to do it without 3, but it's more difficult. It's going to require more nuance, and it's just going to be more advanced. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to turn into a project. Okay, and remember, it's a swarm build. It shouldn't be a project to get it off the ground. By definition, it needs to get off the ground right away. I did a playthrough. My very first playthrough was as the Azai, who only have 2 castles, and I used a swarm build in that, and it was okay. It was effective, but it wasn't great. You know what I mean? It's more out of necessity than anything else. So, like I said, you need at least 3 castles for those reasons. Okay, now once you get a clan that's got 3 castles, the next thing you look for, like I said, these are I would say the 3 pillars. That's the first pillar. It's pretty simple. Get somebody who's at least got 3. The second thing that you need is somebody who has a conservator role that boosts troops. Now, almost every clan, okay, following the dominoes, you pick somebody that has 3 castles, odds are you're going to have more than a couple of officers, so you should have somebody. Now, I have the Ouchi clan here, one of my favorite clans, set. Almost every clan in the game is going to have, at the start, is going to have somebody who increases troops, increases max soldiers. Okay, conservator trait. In this case, it's Okimori here, and there's more on the chart. Ideally, you want somebody who already has the 8,000. Somebody who's already a senior retainer that has the 8,000. If you don't have somebody who's got 8,000, you can probably get away with somebody who's got 4,000 for now in the short term. But then you have to plan to get that person to 8,000. You have to make an effort to get his honor up to 8,000. Which is why I say again, for this video, let's say you just want to get it off the ground, just pick a clan before you start boot up the game. Choose somebody who already has a guy who fills in this role, who has the 8,000, who can immediately be appointed. Okay, now the conservator trait for increasing soldiers, there's actually 4 of them, which is a shitload. Compared to like cavalry and muskets have 3, which is a good amount. There's 4 different ways to increase your troops. I don't know why I did that, doesn't matter. If you go here, if you go to edit officer and you go down to conservator trait, and you can organize them by their effects, you can see all the different ones in the game. And remember, there's going to be 3 tiers. There's going to be a blue, there's going to be a silver, and a gold, right? You can see the 4 types. There's bolster troops, recruiting operations, strength in numbers, and trained garrison. 4 different ways. They all do the same thing, increase soldiers. Now they vary, the effect varies by a bit. It doesn't really matter too much. The only one that really is negligible is trained garrison normal. 5% increase in soldiers is kind of pathetic. Don't recommend that one, but any of the other ones will work. The difference is the drawbacks. So let's go through them. Bolster troops, the drawback is your harvest goes down. Recruiting operations, gold goes down. Strength in numbers, your unit abilities go down. And the last one, trained garrison, decreases your county settlement speed. The rate at which you capture counties, so the rate at which your huge force moves through and captures counties, it increases how long it takes for them to take them. The only one, in my opinion, that's bad out of all these drawbacks, and this is my opinion, I think they're all pretty much pick your poison. You can work around all of these, but the one that I don't recommend is trained garrison, if you can help it. I think the Azai have trained garrison, so I could not help it. But for it to take longer for you to take the counties that you're marching through actively works against your strategy. Because not only do you want to get there and fight, if you lose the first battle, if you need reinforcements, if you need more hordes to come in, it's going to take longer to get back over there. You know what I mean? Let's say you get wiped out or you lose the battle or whatever, you have to start over, or you have more angles to attack, whatever it is, it just takes you longer to get to where you're going. So one of the drawbacks of the swarm that I'm going to talk about in the next part is that your supplies are always thin. So think about it. If your supplies are already thin, and now you're going to add this other negative effect where it's going to take you longer to see settlements, it's double trouble right there. So trained garrison, I stay away from that if you can help it. You might not always be able to help it though. Still take it. If you have to take it, still take it. You can work around it, okay? The best one, in my opinion, strength in numbers. It has the highest cap, 25%. Nobody else increases your soldiers by 25%. Just gold-plated strength in numbers. So remember that. The drawback of strength in numbers is that it decreases your unit abilities. And, you know, it's kind of significant. Even the weakest version, -5, that's an occupy point. So whenever you take a point on the map, remember that your abilities go up by 5. Strength in numbers normal decreases you by 5. Then it goes up to 7, which is not bad, but the final one goes all the way up to 12. That's 2 occupy points that you're already down when you start the map. So think of it that way. You're already down 2. So it can be a pretty significant drawback. It's really going to come down to player style, right? Me personally, I love this one. I just love the idea of leaning into the whole peasant rabble or horde right? They're not skilled, they're not very good, but they're just going to wear you down. Your elite troops are just going to get tired of killing them, you know, and eventually will win. Okay. The other two are fairly easy to get around. Decreases gold income is always very easy. Remember that you're getting 3 castles to start. Everything starts from that 3 castles because of these drawbacks. Makes it easier to work around, you know. Lower gold income, just build more trade towns. Done, you know. Bolster troops. Your harvest is lowered. Well, increase, you know, build some irrigation canals, build a rice paddy. You know, again, all 4 of these, in my opinion, it's just pick your poison. Like I said, me personally, the one that I suffered the most was trained garrison, because I personally experienced that one. And like I said, it compounds that drawback of I have more soldiers, but my supplies are never stable. Your supplies are never stable. They can't keep up. So those are the 4 different ones. I say if you can, go for strength in numbers. If you can't, if you can't help it and you have to go for another one, go for another one. And if you're totally screwed, shit, use trained garrison. It's still not that bad. So you need somebody who has a conservator trait, who meets that 4,000 cap. That's all that matters. Or 8,000, excuse me, not 4, 8,000. So you need somebody who hits that cap no matter what. Okay. The last thing, everybody has access to this one. Almost everybody, I should say. The last thing is standing army, the policy. Standing army, I'm pretty sure everybody's used this. Requirement of only 30 prestige. So again, if you have 3 castles, you probably have 30 prestige. Okay. If you don't, you can, you send a couple, I think you can get your first title and you'll hit that goalpost. So it's very easy to hit that. The effect, 300 extra soldiers for each training grounds. So when you get a training grounds built, it gives you 900 soldiers. Getting an extra 300 for each training grounds is effectively a third on top of everything. So for every 3 training grounds, with this policy, each 3 training grounds will give you a 4th training grounds. 3, 6, 9. This is just the level 1. Let me say. The level 2 and the level 3, if you're any of these 3-tier policies, the 3rd level almost never matters. Okay, equestrian, gunnery, you've heard me talk about this in other videos. They're so late game that the game's already over. You've snowballed or you won the game. The first 2 are the ones that matter. So for standing army, just getting to level 1 is extremely strong, because think about it, you have 3 castles already. If I can, I'll show you guys in the 3rd part. I'm not sure, but hopefully I show you guys how to do this. But essentially, you can start building your training grounds while you're getting this policy. Okay, so by the time this is done and online, you'll have a 4th training ground. You have 3 castles, build 1 in each castle, or double up in your capital, which is what I do. I always double up. That's an old Nobunagas ambition thing anyway. It's okay, times 2 barracks, whenever you start. So standing army, everybody has access to this. The ones, of these 3 things, the 2 that you can control very easily is your standing army and having a 3 castle minimum. Your conservator trait is the only thing that's always going to be up in the air, because there might not be a force that has a conservator trait that you actually want to play. So that's the only part where you're going to have to give a little bit. There's going to be a little take and give there. But outside of that, choosing somebody who has at least 3 castles is pretty easy. And standing army, you're going to be able to afford, because just by having those 3 castles, even if you go into the red, remember that swarm is winning now. It's winning quickly. So even if you go into the red, it doesn't matter. As long as you have a treasury, like the Uchi, 25,000 right here. As long as you have a treasury that can sustain you for a little while, you'll get the money later. Money will come later. So don't worry about that. Just get your standing army ready, get it off the ground, and start building your training grounds right away. Alright, so those are the 3 things really that get it online. Standing army, very basic. Choose somebody who has 3 castles. Okay, you can do it with 2. You can even do this with 1. but again, you're going to be jumping through more and more hoops. And at that point, it's going to feel like pulling teeth. You want to make this smooth. So 3 castle start minimum, standing army, and then choose a conservator role. I recommend strength in numbers. So that's that. Now let's talk about the strength. Okay, so let me show you guys what I've done here. Is I've pretty much put already a training grounds in each spot, and we've just gotten the policy, so you guys can see the new caps, right? Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the conservator role. Oh, here he is. 25% more soldiers. Like I said, it's really, really straightforward. All I did was tell them, okay, build a castle town. Build a castle town. Build a barracks, get the barracks up, the training grounds, get another training grounds up, get another training grounds up, and then finally, while I'm getting the policy, which I just finished getting, and then all I do is turn on the conservator role, and then look at these caps. 2,997, 3,371, and then our capital 5,811. Incredibly high caps. So just compare, you know what I mean? Compare it to neighboring clans. You can see the troop disparity. We're not even capped yet. Let me see if I can turn on the speed so we can actually see everything capped out. But it's very, very, very high. Okay. Now one of the problems. Okay. Well, you know what? Let me talk about the strength first. So the strength of having this, obviously, it's pretty apparent. But like I said, the swarm, you can just overwhelm your opponent by just having, pound for pound, you're going to have more soldiers. Usually a third, sometimes more. Sometimes you're going to have 50% more soldiers in one castle versus your neighbor. Now the Ouchi here, they've got 8 castles or whatever. But I'm just saying, if you pick one of the castles that has the training town in it, combined with the policy, and you compare it, it's almost always going to have times that and a half more. Different castles are different. Some are bigger, some are smaller, whatever. But the idea is that you're going to have close to a third more than your neighbor, castle for castle. Okay. Now having more soldiers also means that you're going to occupy the spaces a lot faster. It's going to allow you to fight multiple fronts if you need to. If you are in that situation where you can't go all out against one person, it's easier for defense, of course. But the main use is just to be able to bludgeon a force down. Just hit them again and again. And if you lose soldiers, it doesn't matter, because you have a lot more where that came from. They run out of steam long before you do. Now the weakness, and you can see it looking at my castles, is the supplies. Your supplies don't stabilize, and they rarely stabilize. Depending on how big of a jump your troops go up on that cap increase. When you increase your cap through the conservator role, through the policy, it takes a while to stabilize, like a very long time. Me personally, they don't stabilize for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, because you want to take advantage. You're not gonna jump up and then say, okay, well now I'm gonna wait for my supplies. No, as soon as your soldiers are ready, your soldiers are ready. So provisions are usually going to be a problem, because your soldiers are usually just going to be ahead of your provisions. One thing I do to negate this, okay, to mitigate this, is instead of occupying everything normally, I just use the incite command, which again, this is where that treasury, having a treasury, comes into play. 3 castle start, more money in the bank, you can just use incite. And for those of you who don't know, if a territory is incited, if we start a rebellion here in each county, then when our army passes through the county, it's going to immediately flip. So we don't have to spend any time occupying it. So this is doubly effective if you're stuck using trained garrison, which increases your county settlement speed. You can totally bypass that if your force has a guy who is very good at covert. If you have somebody who has a semi-decent intelligence rating and they can carry out covert, and you can develop a guy through commendations and all that, of course. But have a guy to do that against that target, incite it, and that way your armies that don't have a lot of supplies, they can get there. They'll be able to get there quickly, and it won't matter anyway. You know, because remember, you want to win quickly. You want to use your advantage, leverage your troop advantage right away against the AI. That's the point. It's literally a burst economy. If you've played Swarm in anything competitively, like a miniature game, a war game, a miniature war game, or a card game, or anything really, and a real-time strategy game, you know that you live and die on that burst. You know, you're foregoing income, you're foregoing supplies, you're banking on the fact that you'll be able to knock your opponent out of the war before any of that becomes relevant. So it's the same idea here. So I'm going to incite so that I can quickly get up to his castle and just start beating down his castle. And once I take his castle, well, okay, the war's over. Now my economy will stabilize. I can use his economy to supplement the lack of mine, right? So incite is a go-to tool. It's extremely useful for this. Destroy can be useful as well. But incite's the way to go, because destroy will affect the castle, incite affects the counties, and time is of the essence. You know, your forces can only afford to march maybe one time. Again, your supplies are already behind. It's going to take a long time for them to recuperate. You can sustain a little bit with the treasury. You can sit there and buy, but trust me, it's not going to be enough. You know, just you need to win in exactly one march, one really strong, you know, just all out horde swarm for the win. That's how you have to do it. Now, on the opposite side of it, if you get hit with a raise, okay, if you're playing a good AI like Hideyoshi, for example, or something, and they hit you with a raise and you're trying to swarm, you are dead in the water. Okay? If anybody's played Age of Civilization 2, you know what I'm talking about. Somebody tries to rush you and they just attack your farmlands or your villagers. They kill your economy, right? Same idea. If I'm trying to build up a swarm so that I can go out and I get raised, and my few supplies, the few supplies that I already have, go down to almost nothing, I am done. So that's one thing to be wary of. And I honestly I don't have any recommendation for how to defend against that, because it's just AI based. You know, I would just say be careful. If you're playing a good AI, you know, that's a possibility. Another thing, it's not as bad as the raise, but it basically will bleed you out just the same, is if you suffer an incite. Suffering incite in this game is horrible, because you have to waste time on the field putting down the revolts. And again, you don't have supplies. So if you have to send your guys out, you know, it's really bad, especially because if you have 2 to 3 counties, you might only have enough supplies, because you're building swarm, for 1 unit to go out, not 2 units or 3 units. So you're going to have to put those counties out one at a time, because you don't have supplies. Okay, so it's a nightmare. Just, you know, it's very susceptible to the AI just hitting you with either incite or raise. Both of those will, I can't tell you. I think sometimes I'd rather be raised than incited. Incited is it feels awful, because you're just being bled. Your supplies are just bleeding out as you march from county to county trying to put down these rebellions, and there's just nothing you can do. So there is, you know what I mean, this can definitely be thwarted. I don't really know what you can do to prevent that, honestly. Have a guy with high intelligence, but you know, you're not always going to be able to do that. So that's the big weakness of this strategy. And honestly, it's just a matter of RNG, right? One more thing I should say is, if for some reason, I mean, your swarm fails, then you're definitely not going to have supplies to march again. But you have bigger problems at that point. You know, if you try to swarm an enemy and you're unable to win for whatever reason, or you just run out of gas, then the least of your problems is your supplies at that point. But yeah. So yeah, I think that covered it pretty well. Like I said, every clan has access to this in some variation or another. They can build. The key thing is to just a clan with 3 castles. As you get more experience, then you can go down to 2 castles or 1 castle even, and really mess with it. But you want a guy with a strong conservator role, look for this. Look for somebody that has anything at all, as long as they can fill the spot and increase your max soldiers right away. Because then you can get that 1-2 combo of, okay, increase max soldiers and then standing army to increase the training grounds. That's a very potent 1-2 punch. You can outpace the AI very, very quickly. And then it's a matter of balancing your budget of supplies. You know, you just have to put together a very strong, efficient march that can get the job done in a single campaign. So it's my favorite. This is my favorite way to play. Like I said, I love playing like this. It's a lot of fun. I'll try to do another video talking about maybe the top clans to try to play Swarm, and then I'll cover other builds as I finish play testing them. I don't want to just kick out builds that are that don't work, right? So yeah, we're gonna have the Sonata playthrough is gonna keep going. We're gonna have a new live stream starting this Saturday. The Nobukatsu live stream has just ended, so definitely go check those out. Those were a lot of fun to play. The Sonata playthrough is coming to a head with Mazayuki passing away. We're getting ready to face the Toyotomi at Sekigahara. We'll see if the grandson has the chops to do it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.